How's everybody's term paper doing if you haven't finished it already? What's a term paper? Isn't it fun though? I still find some folks are worried about writing that many words. But you know, they're not that hard when you don't have to worry about what you say. But you do have to say something, which is fun. However, and it's a good opportunity. This is in a sense a writing class, but the writing classes you'll have later will be harder, because I doubt if you'll have the leniency of the kind of assignment that I've given. But you know, that was one of the things I found, were a lot of people had never written that kind of paper before and were scared to death of it and couldn't get started. But by giving it such an easier way of looking at it, it made it possible for a lot of people to be able to at least write something and feel relaxed more about what they were writing. That they're not going to be wrong. It's your opinion. How can your opinion not be your opinion? It's, you know, your opinion could be wrong, but you know, you're not wrong for having your opinion. So there, you know, you're safe, I think. Got a couple minutes yet. I don't want to get in trouble with folks that are on time. So, anybody have any good jokes? Big jokes? Sunny side up? I don't know if I told you, but my golf game is back. Yes. I figured out, I went on the internet, of course, and asked people, hey, how do I get my Oculus Quest to work on my game? And they said, well, delete the game and then start again. And so they showed me, you know, the one, they didn't show me, he had a video that says how to do it. You go here, go here, go here, go. Like 14 different places you had to click on in order to finally erase that game. And it kept saying, are you sure? It'll be gone forever. And, you know, all that warning stuff. And finally I deleted the game and reinstalled it. And then of course I had to, you know, wow, welcome to the game, etc. And all that stuff. And but I started playing it, and the other night, one of the guys that used to often play with me, because you can have multiple people on at the same time, which is dumb really in golf, because what you're doing is having fun playing, and then when you're playing with someone else, you've got to wait for them while they're playing, you know, so it doubles the time, but not the fun. But the thing is, you can talk to one another while you're doing it. So when the guy takes a shot that he totally misses the hole and then yells words that your mother would never let you say, you know, I guess that's terrific. But then the other night, Brett, who I found out is in Queen Victoria, British Columbia. I remember that. So that makes sense, because we were both up pretty late at night, and that would only make sense if he was close to Alaska. But he has a membership at St. Andrews Golf Course, the first place where golf was invented. If you remember Robin Williams doing the sketch. And so I got to play, because he invited me as a free guest, because I'm not going to pay extra for a golf course. So he invited me, and I got to play in Scotland. Of course, you're looking at the scenery, so you can see St. Andrews and the university over there. And gosh, what a terrible golf course that was. All the bushes and brambles and the traps are not traps, they're like craters. So that was fun. I think I'm filming the socks. Am I filming the sky again, Doug?
No, it's
it's on me. Well, at the moment, I'm holding it right in front of me, so maybe. But so we were talking about Wittgenstein and Russell. Russell trying to create a language that would be less confusing, less ambiguous than English and other languages, right? And Wittgenstein getting interested and involved and getting his PhD thanks to his Tractatus, which did come up with some real solutions to the things that Bertrand Russell was trying to do. I mentioned the truth table, which was a pictographic way of showing the logical possibilities of truth or falsehood of any structured statement that could be either true or false, including the whole argument. So of course that's essentially what computers are doing when they're doing, running a program. They're using that, and also he helped refine the language and so on. But he concluded from that really you could say very little in that language. In fact, all the important things that are worth saying, you can't say. Because you can only show them. You can show love, you can show emotions and so on, but those are unexpressible in this language. And in fact, as we've discussed multiple times, value is not expressible in a truth or false, true or false language like mathematics. The things that are valuable are the things that are, in a sense, neither true nor false, right? And that's something we get all the way back, at least from David Hume, who gives us the fallacy, actually, the naturalistic fallacy of thinking that your emotional attachment to things is true, when in fact you can't prove it, and someone else might feel just the opposite. And so you end up with a situation where the statements that mean the most to us are neither true nor false. And remember, with David Hume, that means that when you get down to the crux of the argument between two different points of view, you could be using logic and doing everything correctly, but if your premises are based on an attitude that is a value, and the value is not held by the other, you can't resolve that with logic. Logic doesn't help in that case. What can? Walking a mile in the other person's shoes is the way we usually express that. You've got to live the experience of that other person. And by the way, if you're familiar with Steven Pinker, who I recommend you be familiar with Steven Pinker, in his one book, The Better Angels of Our Nature, he points out that during the period of time where we started having novels available to us, roughly from the late 1600s and on, people would be able to read novels about people that they would not ever be able to meet in person. But those novels, like of people in India and the experiences they're having, or people from different cultures and so on, would enable us to get a feeling for their situation and the kinds of problems that people used to have before started to go away, and that we're in a sense living in a golden age of peace and prosperity. I know the news, remember, I think I mentioned the news media, follows a very strict rule. If it bleeds, it leads, right? So it's bad news, and because we have so much media and so much cameras on the spot, we get to see all the worst things that are happening all over the place. And fortunately, there are some nice, cute cat videos that help relieve the tension every once in a while. But for the most part, what we're seeing is horrible things. That gives us the impression that we're just in a leaky lifeboat, in a stormy ocean, we're just dying. But when you go and you look at the statistics, which we have more of than ever, it turns out, gosh, there's fewer violent things happening in the world than there ever were, at least since we've been keeping statistics. And thank you, France, for having statistics for quite some time. So that's kind of interesting. And he even has a name for that effect. I can't remember what it is. But with Wittgenstein's introduction to John Dewey at the teacher training program that he went to, he's actually introduced to Hegel, and Hegel, of course, gives us an updated version by actually several generations over Kant. And as a result, Wittgenstein comes to realize that his earlier understanding of the nature of language was in error. That actually there are so many different, what he will now call language games, that, let's see where I stuck that here. So there are language games, Sprachspiel, right? Why does German always make it sound horrible, you know? Sprachspiel. There's one character on YouTube that uses the word for a whole bunch of things in French and English and Italian, and then he hits German, and when he gets to German, just kind of fun. But language games, what are they? Well, they're not games, really. He just used this expression because what he noticed was that there are lots of them, and they have rules. And they might even have aims in the game. But what are the rules? The rules are things like grammar and things that you can say. And notice once you get into this, we discover that there's a new way to analyze virtually all of the problems of philosophy. Take, for example, the question of determinism and free will. Can we have free will? Or is everything so determined by cause and effect relationships that it's essentially a mistake to think that anyone has free agency, right? Well, if you think of these as language games, and the one language game, say, would be the scientific interpretation of anything that's going on. Well, in the scientific view, everything has to be cause and effect. It's a requirement. You can't have miracles. You can't say this happened, and this happened, and this happened, then a miracle occurred, and then this happened, right? You get kicked out of the lab when you think that way, right? Although, by the way, what I've discovered lately is Darwin is being thought of as less and less accurate. Well, of course, he's over 1859. How many years ago was that? A lot of years, more than 100. So 100, not quite 150, right? But so in any case, anybody figure it out? We've got any math geniuses here? No? Okay. Well, that's all right. We don't need to do math. It's a language game anyway. But if you think of how science works, everything has to be cause and effect, even if we haven't figured it out. And the problem with Darwin is, today, when we look at, well, number one, he didn't understand genes. He didn't have that. He didn't understand the cell. Cells, for him, looked like little blobs of jelly. He had no idea how complex cells were. But of course, today, when we look at cells, we discover that they're full of all these little machines. I suppose, if you think of the propellers, that move single-celled animals, it takes like 34 different separate machines in order to make those propellers work. And each of those different little machines, so-called, require parts. So they're incredibly complex. And so for the idea that could have gradually evolved from step by step by step by step, and I guess the best explanation of how that couldn't happen is imagine an almost complete mousetrap. Wouldn't work, right? You need all the parts of the mousetrap in order to work, and once you have that, of course, then you have a mousetrap. But it's silly to think that the mousetrap could have evolved with, you know, a couple of spare parts that had been sitting around and just gradually ended up being together and ended up mouse